whatever you're going to do. You can probably become a pediatrician and not worry about that. But honestly, it is just ridiculous. I mean, I know kids who are in medical school, and they hate the medical rotations. Oh my God, the hygiene is poor among old people, etc. I mean, it's awful. I mean, you think, well, what the hell do they think medicine is? So people are getting sold a bill of goods about what medicine ought to be and is. And on the other hand, if you are one of those people who truly understands the joy that you can get from working with elderly people, spending time with them, having relationship-based medicine, this isn't being banished to the sordid outposts of low-performing medicine. This is where the action is. This is where it is, and this is the future. And we need to drill this right back into the education programs to say that really a primary care practitioner in any discipline is essentially both a gerontologist and a geriatrician. And the gerontology part is important too, to think of aging as a social phenomenon and not just a medical phenomenon. So I think this is it. Secondly, organizationally, while we don't need another restructuring usually, we do need one here. Primary health care has to be responsible for a person's life course events when they're old. So, if I could wave a wand, I would say let's move to sort of a primary care trust model as exists in Britain. You have a polyclinic, a large one. It's many different kinds of people working. But your responsibilities don't stop when people need community care. You arrange the community care. You deploy the community care. You get funded on an age-adjusted per capita basis for the totality of care. And you get rewarded when people don't use the ER, and they don't use hospitals, and they don't go into nursing homes. And there is some financial disincentive to punt people off to other things. This is what any sensible system would do, knowing what we know now that we didn't know then. And we need to get there. So when we hear about what's going on in Ontario, there are some noble aspirations and so on, but I keep asking myself, why would you hive off community care to community care access centers? Why would you decouple it from primary health care and give family health teams an implicit license not to worry about it once they get into that system? It's crazy. So I think they really ought to think of it. And it always comes back to the same thing in reforming health care. If you don't get primary health care right, all the rest doesn't matter. You know, you're doomed to not succeeding. Secondly, why don't we try to put some of the options in the hands of the people who actually have to receive the services? There's a paradox here. For the health system generally, whether we agree with it or not, the public is getting the healthcare system that it kind of wants. You know, the public likes diagnostic imaging, the public likes arthroscopy, go figure. The public likes big hospitals, the public likes all these institutional arrangements. But the elderly don't. When you ask the elderly, and Dot and others, they know that the system that we have for the elderly is exactly what the elderly don't want. Now, how is that? How is it that we have so disempowered this large and growing group of people who are incidentally now richer than ever from getting the system that they want? Well, again, there's a reason for it, right? Communities like construction. Builders like to build institutions. Accreditation agencies like facilities where they can say who does what and make sure it's highly professional. So there's an economic interest at play that actually builds this thing that people don't want. So it strikes me we can do a very simple thing. Let's assume we need a certain baseline number of institutional beds for the elderly. I understand that that's true. You're never going to get to zero. Whatever that baseline is, before a community can get another nursing home, you have to have a referendum of people age 65 plus that votes in favor of it. And if they don't, you don't get it. And you give them cost-neutral options. It's not, do you want a nursing home or not? It's, here's X million dollars. Do you want more home care? Do you want a voucher system? Do you want some kind of assisted supported living facilities? You guys get to choose what it's going to look like. And you'll be damn sure that there will be no longer any promises to build 20,000 nursing home beds. This is some sort of public policy triumph. You would greatly alter the configuration of care. It would be far less medicalized. It would be far cheaper, more effective, and closer to home. And I think it's doable. I mean, I know it sounds ridiculous. You can't have a referendum like this. We have referendums for everything that's stupid. We have referendums on fluoride, for God's sake. Why can't we have referendums on this? Okay, so you can see I have all three answers. The third one is community design. I think the most interesting expansion of intellectual effort in healthcare has come from medical geographers and urban designers. The interaction of the environment with how you are. And I've got a hypothesis to throw out here, and I hope some of you test it. Some of you may already know the answer, which is that the denser the urban landscape, that is the higher number of people per square kilometer, the closer the proximities of standard everyday goods and services, the less likely the people to lose independence. So I think one of the reasons why Europe manages to have a lower rate of institutionalization and so forth is because European cities are very compact. They have a much, much smaller geographic footprint. They don't look like Calgary and Saskatoon with giant sprawl. So you're able to have very efficient and timely and frequent urban transit. You go within 200 meters of your house and you've got a bank, a bakery, 3 restaurants, a food store, probably a clinic and so forth. It's not, you can be pretty frail and pretty immobile and still get all you need with very little help. Higher density means you have more neighbors. They see you, they know you. So the burden of existing in a big, flat suburb is a huge problem for looking after people efficiently and helping them to stay independent. Now, we're not going to shrink the footprint of Western Canadian prairie cities anytime soon, but we can design new areas, the revitalization of central areas, to be much more compact, age-friendly, disability-friendly zones, where you can accommodate a far higher degree of disability and also achieve a much more efficient deployment of care because you have more around and more in proximity. So I hope we start designing those things in quickly, because again, I think that is something that the frail elderly would absolutely welcome, and it would make a huge difference on the amount of care they need, and it would make the entire community in some ways more vibrant. The fourth solution, and I really admired Ross Upsher's talk, but again, this paradox is the more complex the circumstance medically, the more you need to simplify the care. At some point, we should actually quit caring about the diagnosis. You know, at some age, 80, 85, I don't know, just like, who gives a damn? And you know, we're not going to try to fine-tune drug therapy for this and this and this. Obviously, you want to control people's pain. Obviously, you want to control the symptoms that really impair their quality of life. But dealing with the rest of it is, you know, at some point this becomes futile and silly. It may not be someday. I mean, I'm kind of a Star Wars optimist on science too, that maybe we're in the halfway zone. And that some of these things, there'll be a magic breakthrough in 15 or 20 years. When the Rand Corporation assembled 100 scientific and medical experts around 2000 and said, what do you think the probability of solving various problems will be in 20 or 25 years? About 50% of them thought that there would be some major breakthroughs in dementia care. But again, this is a normally optimistic community, and I don't know if you said to them, by what year would you bet we would have a breakthrough and throw down your paycheck if they would bet the same thing. But I don't think it's beyond the realm of a possibility that we will have some breakthrough in neuronal rescue and so on. Just not bank about it. But the backbone of the system is going to be a battle, and it's going to be an HHR battle. Who owns long-term care in the community? Is it medicine? Is it nursing? Is it the personal support worker? My view is it's probably the personal support worker. And we ought to treat personal support workers as an honorable career path that's decently paid, acquire skills, and also that can be the family and the person's primary relationship. The relationship matters. People who know you, observe you, and they understand you, and they pick up things that no amount of medical intensity can substitute for. So again, this is something we need to get right. And given the rush to hire credentials for every occupation in the Canadian healthcare system, pretty soon there'll be nothing that isn't master's entry, a degree in entry to practice, and so on. This is a huge battle for turf, protection, status, accreditation, all that other stuff. So we need to have this conversation about who does what, and what is the fundamental anchor of community care. And my final solution, which should occur to many of you in this room, being boomers, and should alleviate your boomer angst, is something I would call the family unit care contract. Now, you may want to change that if you don't like the acronym. But it's pretty simple, which is that if the contract would say that for every year your kid is living at home beyond the age of 22, they owe you 6 months of service. And if you do this, then I think you'll have no problem in having a very happy, angst-free aging, and the world will save a lot of money, and your kid will learn some responsibility at whatever age that might be. So I'm done, and